is harder for women to lose fat. Like it's not your imagination. When you go through the whole, like, with, like, if you and your husband or boyfriend or whatever have ever, like, try to, like, lose weight at the same time, you'll notice that there is, like, especially in the beginning, like, maybe if you both, like, have, like, that one good week, after a while, it seems like they're kind of just going at a much faster pace than you. After a while, it's really, really common for guys to just keep going and the woman to hit a plateau. And so the 5 things that we listed on that poster are the most common issues that we see with women and why they have an issue with the weight loss, weight regain, and then again, that we just go so much slower than guys, and why it's so much harder for us. So that's the main thing that we're going to be discussing today. I hope everybody here kind of knows me. I'm Kiki. I am the co-founder of Eat More to Weigh Less. I run this with my husband and my team, who are all on here, but I just want to show you guys that, like, I'm not just, you know, I know it seems like I just say don't weigh, but I want to show you guys that I'm right there with you. So some of the things that you may have seen from me over the years, and I'm showing you from my phone, so I don't even know if you can see it, but I've showed my own little, wait, can you guys see that? Sorry, my little thing isn't away. So I've showed, like, throughout the years, I've done it as well. That's, like, at some point I weighed 131, not anymore. At another point I weighed like 127, and that shot up to 137. What else? And I know I showed this one last year, with the difference between me at 136 and 142. So when I'm saying that, you know, weighing can kind of bring you down and it can stop you from making progress, I'm walking in it with you. So I am reaching weights that I thought, like, weren't necessarily reasonable for me, but that does not mean that I am not still making progress. So I just want you guys to know that that's not something that I just throw out nonchalantly. It's something that I'm experiencing with you, but because of the mentality that I have about the scale weight, I've been able to see a lot more progress. So although I started out this journey, and when I first started talking about Eat More to Weigh Less, I think it was maybe like 120 something pounds or something like that I was, you know, gaining the same 5 to 10, 120 to 140-ish range. I well exceeded the 140-ish range, but originally that 140 was a very, very high fat level for me, and now it's not. And I remember that one of the biggest wishes that I had when I was in the 120 pound range or 150, whatever I started at, I remember always saying, like, my goal was that I wanted people to know that I didn't want people to be so shocked when I said that I worked out. And that annoyed me. Whenever I would say that I worked out, people would be like, oh, really? Oh. And I didn't like the fact that people couldn't tell that I worked out. So one of my goals was always to, like, I want to look like I work out. And it's funny that now, at the highest weight that I've ever been, I get complimented about working out. I get people who randomly say that about me without even trying. So, you know, now that, you know, 5, 10, when I was fighting the scale, that was my goal. Once I stopped fighting the scale, now I hear people say that, and it still kind of, like, throws me when they say it. But, like, just the other day I was somewhere and they're like, I mean, well, you're really fit, so I mean, obviously, like, you work out. And it kind of floors me now how quickly people throw that my way when I'm at a higher weight. So I just wanted to say that to let you guys know that I'm right there with you. This isn't just something that I'm just saying. So the reason why I really want you guys to get this information right off the bat is because when you really grasp that the scale is not the indicator of progress, when you truly not just get it, but actually believe it, digest it, and live it, you actually get to the point where when you lose fat, you keep it off. You actually see your shape change. You actually start to look like you work out because you realize that it's not really about the scale. Your metabolism is faster, your BMR is increased, and you really start realizing that, like, you have actually slowed down the aging process. The studies are showing now that your age, the way that your body acts, feels, and looks is highly determined by your muscle mass. A lot of what goes on at a cellular level is really, really helped out by the amount of muscle mass that you have. So this is something that you have to get down, and I really want you guys to experience that freedom. That's the reason why we talk about this up front. That's the reason why we're bringing this into our mini workshop sessions, and that's the reason why we're starting with that focus. So we really want you to be able to switch the focus. So I know that a lot of people, where it comes to maybe doctor visits, you know, or maybe you're trying to get a certain position, maybe if you're the type of person that's trying to be a, you know, an officer, or you're trying to get into the military, or your job requires you to get physicals, things like that, you know, let's just talk about that right off the bat. There's going to be times that maybe, especially if you're pushing this non-scale journey, that you're going to have these obstacles in your path, like a doctor or someone telling you that you have to lose weight for health reasons. Now, maybe that's true. Not going to tell you to like completely go against what your doctor is saying to you. But what I want to make sure that we bring into play is the understanding that most of the time when your doctor is telling you, and what your doctor has learned about these health related issues that are connected to weight, the information is being misplaced in the weight category. Those connections are with fat. They are with higher body fat percentages. So to separate the two helps you to understand that it's not about what the scale is doing. It's really hard because just over the last 20 to 30 years or so, BMI became, you know, the thing that we lived and died by, even though if you look beyond that, we weren't using BMI. So it came into play. Now research is slowly trying to take it back out of play again, because BMI is outdated and it does not take into account muscle mass, which means it's also not taking into account your fat mass. So the diabetes issues, the obesity, the, you know, injury, when people are telling you that maybe you're more injury prone, whether you're going in to get checked for something that happened, or they're telling you you're going to be at a higher risk for your knee or your foot or your ankle issues, or even cancer and osteoarthritis, things like that, those are related to a higher fat percentage, not a higher weight percentage. One of my clients, where she did go into a doctor for an issue that she was having that was related to our training, and what the doctor told her was basically lose weight. That's what I want you guys to understand, is that that is typically going to be your doctor's first line of defense, only because it's an easy one. That doesn't mean that it's necessarily always right, and my clients know this. I do recommend you getting a second opinion from someone who understands that. So that means looking at it in a different way. Understanding that the actual problem is with the body fat, and it's not with the body weight. Because if you start losing that weight and you're losing muscle, you're going to find out that those problems are getting worse, because you can have a low BMI and a high body fat percentage. Skinny does not equal healthy. So we have to remove those two things from each other. We're connecting them way too much. We feel like as long as we are thinner, then we're healthier, and a lot of times the doctor is presenting it that way to you, but I just want you to be able to look through it clearly and understand that A, you have the right to a second opinion, B, you have the right to explain to your doctor, you know, hey, well, right now I'm trying to, you know, focus more on my muscle mass and body fat rather than just my weight. And unless you're getting, you know, measured for like how much anesthesia they need to give you, you do not have to be weighed. Your weight is not that much connected to your health. It's more of the waist circumference, the body fat percentage, and things like that, which we'll get into more of that later. But I just want to give you guys a basic overview of how some of this works. We know that the scale is sensitive and it has all these fluctuations, and you know that on a day you eat too many carbs, that the next day the scale, you know, is up, or that it's different from the time that you wake up in the morning to the time you go to bed at night. The scale is going to fluctuate if you're overstressed, because your body's going to release more cortisol, which is going to make you retain more water. So there's already, like, the scale is already very, very finicky, and I know we've published plenty of articles about that in the past. So if you guys want to, you know, dwell on the scale fluctuations, we can talk about that more. But I really, really want to get into how muscle plays in this equation, so that you can understand why this is more of an issue for women than men. Men already start off with a higher muscle percentage than we do, and then we lose muscle when we go through the extremes of dieting. So a person that does, which is a lot of women do, they diet with a higher percentage of cardio. When you're doing more cardio, you're losing, now studies vary on this, but at best they show that it's about 68% fat and 22% muscle when you're just dieting and doing cardio for your exercise. And when you're dieting and lifting, that percentage shoots up to like 97% is coming from fat and only 3% is coming from muscle. Now, if you're dieting and lifting and you're putting yourself in that area to be able to lose that 97%, which some studies even show that it's 0%, but you're focused on the scale, you're going to run at every sign of trouble. You're going to run every time the scale does one of those crazy fluctuation things that it does when you're lifting. So even though you're doing the right thing to get you the right results, to get you to the point where you're losing fat instead of muscle, you are actually going to sabotage yourself because you're weighing in. So you're going to weigh in and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, the scale shot up. I need to stop lifting and go back to the cardio. I need to slash my calories again. So then you're going to trip yourself up trying to chase down the scale number. So that's the reason why it's so important to understand, because what you're doing up front is saying, okay, I'm putting these habits in motion to make sure that I'm focused on a muscle-based mindset. And when you do that, then you know that everything the scale says come with a grain of salt. If you're not taking that with a grain of salt and you're taking it as the be-all, end-all, then you will consistently be inconsistent. You will continually stop yourself from doing what matters and doing what's actually going to get you the best results because you're scared that you're doing something wrong, because you think that that weight is affecting you. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of math just to kind of help you to see that, to help you to really, because if you're worried about the scale, then you like numbers, right? So I'm going to give you a little bit. So we know about BMR. If you don't know about BMR, I posted the quick start guide earlier for Eat More to Weigh Less, which talks about like how how many calories to eat and stuff like that. Your BMR is the total amount of calories that you're eating, that you're burning at rest. So when you're just like laying in bed in like a comatose state, like that's your BMR. So that's like the basic number of calories that you need to get by. Now, when you're looking at your BMR, 2/3 of that makes up what you are burning all day long. And then half of that number comes from the amount of muscle you have. So automatically, when you have less muscle mass, you have a lower BMR. So when people complain about having a sluggish or slow metabolism, that's what we're looking at. This is your metabolism in a nutshell. More muscle equals you're having a higher calorie burn just at rest. Okay, so if you have more muscles, you're burning more calories just sitting around in a comatose state. If you have less muscles, then you're burning less calories sitting around in a comatose state. And since that's the bulk of the calories that you're burning all day before you start moving around, less muscle equals slower metabolism. So when you understand how those two come into play, then you see why your main goal is the muscle-based mindset. Every single thing that you do concerning diet and exercise should be with the intent of gaining or at very least maintaining as much muscle mass as possible. If you are not preserving that muscle mass, you are killing your metabolism. So even if the scale is going down, it doesn't matter. If the scale is going down but you're losing muscle, your metabolism is slowing. I'm going to repeat that because I really, really feel like we need to understand that for the scale. If the scale goes down and you lose muscle, your metabolism is slower. So again, like I said, I actually worked up some numbers for you guys just to make it fun, because we're talking about the scale here. So now the numbers that I have is, if we have woman A and woman B, okay? So they're on this weight loss journey. So you have woman A, she loses 18, 19 pounds in 21 days, okay? She goes on 21-day blah, blah, and loses 18 pounds, okay? So using our percentages of what we know of this person that's, you know, trying to lose fat very, very rapidly, which means that she's losing muscle, because if you lose it fast, then you're losing muscle. So she loses her 19 pounds in 21 days. You know, 13 and a half of that comes from fat, 5 and a half of that comes from muscle. Okay, so this woman lost 19 pounds. Woman B, over the course of 8 months, lost 16 pounds of fat, but she gained 16 pounds of muscle. That means 0 on the scale, right? So for 8 months, the scale just sat at 0. Nothing happened for 8 whole months. But woman A, 21 days, done. She's lost her 19 pounds. She's good to go. Now, what's happening with their metabolism? Woman A, after 21 days, because of the amount of muscle that she lost, will be burning 105 fewer calories. Okay, so she's lost the weight, but now she's burning less calories after 21 days. She's burning only 105. She's burning 105 calories less. Whereas woman B, who sat still for 8 months, is burning about 30 calories more per day. So even though her weight sat still, she's burning more calories after 8 months. Whereas woman A, who finally got off that 20 pounds, is actually burning less, 100 less. And that's only after 21 days. If she repeats that process just twice in the year, then by the end of the year, she's burning 200, 300 calories less overall. And she has less muscle. So she's burning less. Her metabolism is way slower, while the other woman, hers is steadily going up. This is why it is so, so important for us to not focus on the scale. Because if you go through all of that, and now you're burning less calories, which means it gets harder and harder. That means if you started off and you were able to lose, and if you think about it, most people, they're dieting off crazy, crazy low amounts of calories. So if you started off at 2,000 and you were able to lose weight at that, then by the end of the year, you're like maintaining on 1,700, and 9 times out of 10, guess what? You've gained and lost that same weight. So you're probably even bigger, and now you eat less. So that is why we start getting stuck in that cycle of not being able to lose no matter how little we eat. So I really, really wanted you guys to understand that, because we get caught up in it and we think like, I can't afford to gain anymore. But when it comes to muscle, you can't afford not to. You cannot afford to not regain lost muscle mass from dieting, which most of us have experienced. If we've gone through the rapid like highs and lows and the detoxes and the losing this in 21 days and losing, you know, and when you gain, I've shared the statistics on that before too. When you gain and then you re-lose, so if you gain 10, right? I mean, if you lose 10 and you gain back 15, that extra 5 pounds is all fat, 100% fat. So that means like you're losing, you're burning less, but you have a higher fat percentage. This is why it's so much harder for women, because guys don't usually complain about gaining muscle. You know, I mean, obviously there's exceptions to the rule, but most guys are like, cool, you know, like they want a little bit of muscle. They don't mind, you know, some lifting and other things like that. And they already started off with more. So if we start off with less and then we work out in a way that doesn't preserve the muscle mass that we do have, and then every year we're burning less and less calories and our metabolism is getting slower and slower, and we're still overly focused on losing that weight and losing our whatever, you know, losing our 20 pounds and 5 of it coming from muscle, it's a big deal. And because we refuse to regain the muscle, it's an even bigger deal. So that's why even a person who sees 0 movement on the scale, but they're losing some fat, they're gaining some muscle, they're losing some fat, they're gaining some muscle, that person is going to be better off at the end of the year, even if that scale sat, you know, at the same amount all year long, than the person who did, you know, a quick random 21-day diet and lost 20 pounds. And that's, you know, that's kind of being generous to what some of these diets have people losing. They're losing so much weight so fast, and a very, very high percentage of it is coming from muscle, and then when they regain it, a very, very high percentage of the gain is fat. Fat is not a metabolically active part of your body. That means it does not require very many calories to maintain. Muscle does. So one of the things that we're going to touch on in more detail in a later topic is the muscle, and having the muscle mindset, really, really being muscle based and focused in what it is that you're doing. So I really want you guys to get that. I know it's hard when you're going through the gain, or when you're not really understanding what the scales are, and you're like, I don't get it. This is eat more to weigh less. Why am I not weighing less? Well, the weighing part is going to depend on your dieting history. The more diets that you've done, the harder it is for you to lose weight because of that. So that's a big reason why all of this comes into play. And that's why it's very, very important for you to, even when it feels like, you know, why would I want to gain? If you're new and just starting out and you're lifting, you're actually going to gain more muscle than you ever have. It's the only time that you can gain muscle and lose fat at the same time. So that means that you truly can sit, you know, a whole year and not see the scale move, but be making so much progress because your body is rebuilding that muscle, and that muscle is making your metabolism faster, and now it's going to be able to burn that fat off. Even if the scale goes up, which, like we said, that's where those scale fluctuations come into play, because when you have a higher muscle percentage, you're gonna have a higher water weight percentage. Muscle without water is jerky, so the more muscle you have, the more water is going to be pulled into it, which is also going to affect the scale. So like I said, I don't know if we want to like waste too much time talking about the actual fluctuations, because it's not so much about troubleshooting the fluctuations as it is about understanding that there will be fluctuations, and that the scale is so finicky that whether you're starting a new workout plan, or, you know, had some birthday cake, or had a high stress day, or, you know, lifted heavier than usual, or had a HIIT workout, or added in some muscle, and now that muscle like wants some moisture in it, or whatever it is, all those things aren't really what you should be troubleshooting. You should be setting the habits in place that will help you to burn fat, but not muscle. When you start burning up your muscle, then that's when you're going to have to deal with some of those statistics that we had before. So I really hope that that helps you guys. I don't know if you have questions about some of those things, or if did that equation intrigue you guys at all? But did seeing those numbers, whether in your head or just visualizing that, really help you? Because I really want you guys to think about that and really think about how the person felt. So when we had the woman A and woman B, the difference in how woman B probably felt watching woman A just drop weight like that, and watching her scale just go down, and she's like, oh, she lost 20 pounds and I'm not doing anything. When that's happening, if you really know, then you actually are gonna feel sorry for the person that's losing weight too fast. Like when I hear about people like, I got all this weight off and I did this, like that hurts my heart, because I know that a few months from now, I'm going to still be making progress. They're going to be regaining their fat only regain, and they're going to be even more frustrated, and they're going to be burning less calories. So that, to me, like, it actually makes me sad instead of making me jealous. I'm not going to say it didn't used to make me jealous. It really, really did used to like upset me when I'm like, I'm just inching away here for months and months and months on end, and that person just did this for 5 minutes and then, you know, lost all the weight. So, but it just doesn't matter. So I just want to challenge you guys, as you leave here today, take some time and actually, you know, write that out. Like, actually think about why you believe what you do about the scale, and what are some of the things that you've been taught, and if you've done weekly weigh-ins and things like that, like, why did that affect you so much, and are those beliefs valid? Because changing your beliefs around these things is the only thing that is going to help you to progress. If you don't grasp this, if you don't get this, and you're like, yeah, that's cool for you, but there's no way that I can be at X weight and be healthy. When you think like that, challenge yourself on it. So I would love for you guys to A, do that, and B, if you have any more questions about it, write them in here. If you're watching the replay, give me your questions. Me, the team, I got my team on here too. If you really don't get this, or if you're really like, it kind of makes sense, but I can't, like, let me know. Like, what do you feel? And like I said, we're going to be talking in future videos about more of the muscle part. We're going to really hone in on how to make sure that you're making sure that your diet and exercise is always geared towards maximum fat loss and minimum muscle loss.